legal plan attorneys can do. So, absolutely you could fill out the form. And I did. I just decided, I'm going to do an LLC in Delaware. I think I asked Kevin Rose instead of an attorney. It was all right. It worked. And by the way, we've never revised those papers. We're still using those documents. Here we are 8 years later, and they work. Start your own business. LegalZoom wants to help you start your own corporation or LLC. File your DBA. Get up and running quickly and easily and affordably. Find out why more than 1 million entrepreneurs, including me, use LegalZoom to start down the path of successful business ownership. And this month, to celebrate National Start Your Business Month, they've got a special deal, a free 3-month trial of the all-new QuickBooks, making it so much easier to run your new business. That's a $119 value free when you enter MBW in the referral box at checkout. You'll also get $10 off your LegalZoom service. That's LegalZoom.com, discount code MBW. LegalZoom is not a law firm. They provide self-help services and can connect you with the right attorney. And they're great. LegalZoom.com. Use the offer code MBW.
Hey, Leo, is LegalZoom a law firm?
They're not a law firm. I'm glad you asked.
Okay.
But they can help you do some of your paperwork.
I wanted to know that. Thank you.
A lot of law stuff is not, you don't need a guy. You don't need a guy to $350 an hour. How much an hour are attorneys? They're like $450 an hour.
It's like audio equipment. The price just goes up.
Unbelievable. But that's how you know you're getting a good attorney, because they cost more, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, I get attorneys by price. How much are you? Oh, $350. Oh, no, you're not good enough for me.
I put the pictures in the chat for you, Leo.
Leo, that sounds like the sort of thing you don't want to say on mic.
I just screwed myself.
By how much they cost.
I just screwed myself.
I'm on the dealer lot and one costs $10,000 more. That's the one I'm buying.
So we can't go to Renee Ritchie's studio, but next time you're on camera, next week, we'll get to see this Arkham Asylum. Wow. It loses some of the eerie spookiness when it's made out of plastic bricks.
You'd think so, but actually when it's lit properly, it is even spookier. It is the uncanny valley.
What is this guy? The half...
Two-Face.
Two-Face.
Oh, sorry. I'm not up on the Batman canon.
Said everybody at the same time.
You guys must read some comic books.
I believe that's the Harvey Dent version of the Two-Face character.
Okay, I'm
revised
clearly outmanned here. We're out-nerded. Julio Ojeda Zapata, writing in the Minneapolis Twin Cities Pioneer Press. Sad to say, the end of the very first Apple dealer after 35 years. First Tech is shuttering its doors. Started in the early 70s. I mean, late 70s, I should say, when Apple first started selling Apple IIs. So it started as Team Electronics, became First Tech. And, you know, I've seen this happen. You probably remember Tom Santos and Mac Adam down on Harrison Street in San Francisco. And I remember him going out of business some years ago. He said, I can't compete with Apple. They've got their own stores now. Yeah. They get the products, much better allocations than we can ever get. You can offer service and support, as Tom did for years, but eventually people just stop going to you.
It's a different world now. I mean, the Apple retail stores have totally changed that game. I remember, this era, that's when I got my first Apple II. Was at a store I remember walking in the doors. It was in Modesto, California, and it was like beige carpet with beige tables and beige computers on them. Yeah. And salesmen, and it was a different world. And some of those stores survived by adapting, but it's not like, when we were talking about Comic-Con earlier. When I go to Comic-Con, I hear comic book retailers talk about this, and their business is a little different, but it's also changing dramatically because people aren't buying stuff in paper anymore, and the rise of digital retailers. It's not that different than the rise of Apple retailing, where you can survive by building a community, being super supportive, but even then it's just a brutal business to be in because the world has changed.
Or being in an area that there is no Apple store and serving those remoter areas. But you look at a normal Apple store now, they have machines that are in the back that they just go and use to replace screens on iPhones.
Yeah,
you can't get those machines.
Yeah. Here's a video from when the Macintosh came out that features that store, the First Tech store in Minneapolis. This harkens back to 1977 when the first Apples were sold. More than 5 million machines sold, all started in Minnesota, the first Apple store. It really is a bit of history. I don't think they had Hummers back then.
One of the biggest success stories, I guess, would have to be what was known as Team Number One. Team Number One was
That was
the
back when the
original
Russians invaded.
franchisee of
That was before the Wolverines beat them back.
Schwarzenegger had a
Team Central was the central organization.
You're listening to Wayne
of
Westlaff,
electronic
who was
stores, some
Apple
100
Store.
stores,
Nice.
mostly
Apple
in
Store.
the
I remember
US.
this. I remember there was an Apple Store in San Francisco. They had
continues to
every bit of
operate
Apple
this day.
software.
They've now changed their name to
Every
FirstTech,
single
with
Mac
the demise
program.
of the Team Electronic stores. But to
Didn't
my
last
knowledge,
long.
that would make them the longest continuous.
No, you'd go in there to buy software,
Apple reseller in
Yeah,
the United
and you
States.
talk to somebody,
Yeah.
and they, you know,
and like
That
a
was-
comic
but
book
that's-
store,
look at the
you could,
Lisa.
you could talk to somebody who was mean and dismissive to you, or you could talk to somebody who was great and you wanted to come back and buy stuff from them.
father's office.
But that's certainly Bell and Howell Apple II, very nice. Oh yeah. But that's part of the problem too. People who silent type thermal printer.
Oh man,
This is like for like 2 generations earlier. What looking at classic cars is what I get from looking at.
yep.
That's the silent type. I remember I printed out my first AppleSoft programs on it.
anyway,
And
that
he
is
used to race those in his youth.
great article by Julio in the Pioneer Press, and you can see it online as well. And he sent us a link to that. I'm glad he did. Thank you, Julio, for writing that story.
The other problem they're facing is that remember that like when stores like that were doing really, really well, it wasn't just getting that interaction from Apple. It was also the idea that most people coming in, that was their first time they had an opportunity to actually put their hands on a real home computer. And now you can, one of the things that makes it so easy to order online is that I know what computers are, I know how they work, I know what I want. I don't have to have someone walk me through, do I need a floppy drive or is the cassette tape going to be okay for me?
So, and another late lamented website, MacFixit.com, which is owned by CNET at this point, and CNET silently shut it down. An article from Ted Landau, who was the creator of MacFixit way back, hard to believe, in 1996. It was a site I used all the time, a place to go to see what people were doing about bugs, whether this was a known bug. He managed the site for 4 years, he said, sold it to Tech Tracker, which did the same thing for all computers in 2000. He was editor to 2002. And I guess the last man standing, Topher Kessler, who has been the primary contributor to MacFixit under CNET, has started a new site, Mac Issues. So same idea. We'll send people to macissues.com. But it's, I mean, I loved MacFixit. I used it all the time. And it was the place I'd go. Somebody would call me on the radio show and say, hey, have you heard about this? And I said, let me check. Let's see.
This is, I know this is kind of inside baseball, but CNET bought Tech Tracker because they wanted the version tracker. We think Mac users think about version tracker, but they wanted especially the Tech Tracker software database for download.com. And they wanted to integrate that data. They eliminated a competitor, but they also integrated all that updates data into their database, which was like strategic for them. The version tracker stuff, less so. And then there was MacFixit, which wasn't like the other two things. And so they inherited it, and it kind of kept going. But I think this was inevitable because that purchase was never meant to be about MacFixit. And CNET's history with Apple-based information is not very strong.
Well, and I got to tell you, frankly, you guys don't run into this probably, but Windows users do all the time. Download.com, their download site, is notorious now for layering adware upon adware upon your downloads, because what you get is, instead of the original file, you get a original file wrapped in a downloader, which installs a lot of crap. It is so close to malware, it's hair's breadth distance.
Some of my very first Mac software reviews are, I think, in that database somewhere.
Really?
Only because I worked at Ziff Davis.
Right.
The Ziff Davis software library went to ZDNet, which got bought by CNET. And I'm sure my 5-mouse review of Drag Thing from 1995 is still there
Still
somewhere.
there. Anybody wants to?
We're like blues musicians that, like, we're given $50 and a bottle of Ripple to record 8 songs, and now it's owned by 8 companies.
Michael Jackson owns it now. I don't know how that
There will be, however, a new Apple store in Istanbul. Simultaneously with shutting down Twitter, Turkey is now getting its own Apple store. I love the way they're building this under wraps. They've got it all hidden.
It's part of the magic, Leo.
The magic of the Apple store. Tim Cook, I think, is going to go there for the opening, but maybe now what's been going on in Istanbul, it might be inappropriate. April 4th will be the opening. It'll be interesting to watch. Istanbul is an amazingly beautiful city with wonderful people, and it is a little scary to see what's happening there right now. Let's see. What else do you want to talk about? There's always good news here in the Apple world. Apple and Google agreed not to poach each other's employees. It turns out it wasn't just Apple and Google. It was a dozen Silicon Valley companies.
A vast Silicon Valley conspiracy.
This one's real.
Absolutely.
This one's real.
Yeah.
It is illegal. It is a form of trust. It's an antitrust violation to say, hey, look, if we said to Revision 3, we won't try to hire any of your people if you don't try to hire any of our people. The reason being those employees are disadvantaged because they can't, basically get competitive offers.
Yep. Right. Either to get a better job or to get you to give them more money in order to keep them. And this is the case of, I would actually say well-off tech executives deciding that they want to protect the value of their company and they don't really care if their employees don't have a free market for their services. And it's not only is this the rare conspiracy that's totally real, but it's awful. It is just it is staggeringly terrible. And there are lots of people in technical fields in Silicon Valley who got shafted by this. It's really bad.
It started as an agreement between Jobs and Google's Eric Schmidt. It expanded to include companies like Dell, IBM, eBay, Microsoft, Comcast, Clear Channel, DreamWorks, the London-based public relations firm WPP. The Justice Department is focused basically on Adobe, Apple, Google, Intel, Intuit, Lucasfilm, and Pixar. Smoking gun memos galore on all this. I mean, they did not even really attempt to hide it particularly.
Not only that, but smoking gun memos from the very top. You have CEOs talking to other CEOs about what their policies are going to be. And so there's just absolutely no cover whatsoever against the awfulness of this scheme.
CEO of eBay, Meg Whitman, called Eric Schmidt to complain that Google's recruiters were hurting profits and business at eBay. Stop it. Stop it. So Eric Schmidt responds to her with a do not forward. Actually, this is to his own hiring team with a do not forward email that says
that'll stop the subpoenas.
Yeah, that'll stop. Whatever you do, don't tell anybody about this. Meg called to talk about our hiring practices. This was a rough call from a good friend. We need to get this fixed. Fire the recruiter immediately.
Ouch.
For cause.
And imagine you're a developer who's got an okay job, or maybe it's a bad job, and somebody at Apple discovers that you are really talented. They see something you did, or they have beer with you, or you're a friend of a friend, and like, oh, we need somebody with your skills, and it's a much better job, and you never are allowed to have it.
Horrible.
It's just ridiculous.
Do you think that it's possible these people did not know how wrong and illegal this was?
Well, I mean, Steve Jobs is a guy, we can say lots of good things about him, but he's also the guy who refused to drive with a license plate and just kept getting a new car every 6 months. So I think it's fair to say that Steve Jobs
Rules
maybe didn't really
me.
care about some of these rules because he thought that he was protecting his company and didn't really care that this was, a secret cabal that was preventing the freedom of the workers in the valley.
For my engineers.
He would definitely have taken this personally and saying, I'm defending my company against people who would attack it by taking away my key personnel. My cause is holy and righteous, and I will prosecute it until the last drop of my blood.
Yeah, but it also doesn't say, and I'm not going to go after their employees.
You know, one of the things that I missed in Haunted Empire, not to get back to that for a second, but I think one of the ways that Steve Jobs is truly haunting Apple to this day is his disregard for a lot of these laws. You see it in the ebook settlement, which we can have issues with Amazon's monopoly on ebooks, but you can see it in the way that they approach that. You can see it with this story, and you could argue that all of the patent lawsuits where he said we were going to go thermonuclear, these are, I think, some of the ways that Steve Jobs really is haunting Apple, because they're still trying to dig out from this stuff and paying the price for some of Steve Jobs' decisions.
I would buy your book in a second, Jason.
It's a comic book.
What's interesting, one company that you might expect in this list is Facebook. Sheryl Sandberg says, I was approached with this idea, and I immediately said, absolutely not.
I think Palm said that too.
Absolutely not.
One of the most Mr. Burns-ish emails in this paper trail was Steve Jobs, like the CEO of Palm, saying, I don't feel as though I can really go ahead with this. I don't think this is right. And then Steve saying, let's take a look at, we could fight this out with lawyers, but take a look at Apple's financial position and then take a look at your position. That's what I would recommend that you do.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
Yeah. I think the only, I mean, I can only, I kind of quiver when I think about if Steve were still around and had to make some sort of public statement on this. Oh my God, that would have been an epic statement about you're all idiots. You don't understand how business works. I can't believe I'm even forced to waste my time to address this. But don't worry, fans of Apple and employees of Apple. We will defend our integrity against these people who wish to harm our company. Don't worry. I'm going to be fighting the good fight for all of us.
You want a free bumper? Fine. Here's your free bumper.
Babies.
You're hiring it wrong. Did I do that right?
Apple is in talks with Comcast once again, but this time not about employees. This time about a streaming service. We'd heard before the Comcast-Time Warner merger that Apple was talking to Time Warner. So is this just continued talks?
Same story.
Seems to me that they said, well, no, you need to talk to this guy now. So
Yeah, we got a new guy.
Right.
New guy in town, although I don't think that merger's happened yet. So
no, but they could probably see the writing on the wall.
they're being proactive.
It's smart. I mean, TiVo's got a deal with Comcast that gives TiVo boxes on Comcast network access to all of the Comcast On Demand stuff. So I think, Comcast makes a lot of money selling internet services. Having it go through Apple, if that's a premium add-on like TiVo is, Comcast has shown in the past that they're happy. Like, look, you don't want our crappy box. You want to pay more for TiVo. That's fine. We'll give you all our stuff on TiVo too.
So the Apple TV would become a Comcast, like HBO Go, would become a Comcast on-demand service, or would have a Comcast app?
I would have. Well, so Comcast service, I just switched 6 months ago to Comcast. Got one of the new TiVos, so I got to discover all of this. Comcast has on-demand. They've got a bunch of live TV channels that stream on their app or on the web.
Right.
So if you're a Comcast subscriber, you can stream those. So you roll all of the stuff that they're bundling that's live and all the stuff that they're bundling that's on demand.
You get the Streamcast too, which is their streaming, like their Netflix competitor, I think.
I don't know. I haven't looked into that one.
Okay.
That may not be on the TiVo.
It's interesting.
But it's like,
Comcast is really becoming.
So they've got
as
content,
you said, this
and
net forward.
Well, and they
company.
own NBC on top of that, right? So you could imagine bundling all of that Comcast stuff together for Comcast customers under an Apple TV channel, even of Comcast, and have access to all the on-demand and all of the streaming live channels that they've got.
But can I get Channel 4? Can I get Channel 5? That would be the question. Because then I wouldn't need.
I bet you could get Channel 11 because they own that.
Yeah.
But
That's a big question.
NBC I could get,
it would
but not
be an
ABC
interesting
and CBS.
idea, and it would be fascinating to me if Comcast said, we have such strength in internet that we're going to go over the top, which is what they call it when you take the cable box out of the equation, and say we're going to put every channel we can live and recorded on the internet for our subscribers.
Yeah, you still have to have a cable account and a Comcast.
But maybe you don't need a TV account anymore or something. I don't know.
Apple, in fact, I think I've mentioned this before. We were talking about the Netflix Comcast brouhaha, and there's a lot more in that, and we will talk about that at some point. But one of the things we learned at the time was that the best way to watch Netflix is on an Apple TV because they host it. They have their own CDN. Apple, of course, concerned about quality, says, you know what, we're not going to trust the public internet to bring you Netflix. We're going to do it ourselves. They've consistently had the best quality Netflix. So imagine if they do this with Comcast.
Absolutely. But the thing is, there's a couple challenges with this. One is that no one really knows what's happening yet. There's some rumors that they're going to actually build the Comcast box and sell it. So you'd be able to get an Apple version of the Comcast box. Some are that it would be an app and it would go on your iOS device or on your Apple TV.
Right.
But there's questions about whether they have the rights to the programming. Can Comcast just give them the rights that they have, or do they need separate agreements? And another thing, and this again goes all the way back to Steve Jobs at All Things Digital, they had a deal with AT&T, which at least covered the country. This, they're going to have to go region by region in America to get the deals just to roll it out. Then they're going to have to, talk to Canadian cable companies, talk to Lithuanian cable companies. It's an incredibly arduous go-to-market strategy. And I think the rumors heating up just show how difficult it is for Apple. And maybe originally they just wanted to make their own TV deals and get their own subscription service. But the cable companies make the cell companies look like the happiest, most go-luckiest companies in the world.
So my theory is that because Comcast is, pending this Time Warner merger, just gigantic and covers a huge amount of the U.S., that one way you might approach this is to say, we're going to build it with Comcast. That's going to show how it's done. It's going to be an Apple TV app. The other cable companies will give them our developers kit. They can make channels that do the same thing using, be like Comcast, do it like that. And that might be the only way they can go forward, is to find the biggest name, make a deal with them, and use that as the example. Because otherwise, you're right, it would take, there would be dozens, if not hundreds, of different negotiations they have to do.
That's the beauty of Comcast. It's massive.
It's, yes.
You only have to make a deal with one
massive.
person. They got everybody.
Yeah. But this is why my main problem with these stories, and we've been following these for a couple of years now, is that sometimes it feels as though Apple's working really, really hard on a BlackBerry style phone, where it can be the most beautiful thing ever, the most wonderful thing ever. That doesn't change the fact that people are moving away from phones with mechanical keyboards that run the way a BlackBerry does. I in my imagination, and I stress the word imagination, I imagine Apple saying that why do we want to encourage people to get all of their content from cable companies forever? If we're really going to invest in the next 5 or 10 years, let's create a way. If we're going to burn so many lawyers into mortal combat against each other to make these deals happen, let's make it easier for cable channels individually to produce content for Apple TV, and they'd still have to go through a sign-in through the cable company to prove that they've actually created
that's what we've got now.
That they have access to it. Well, but they could improve that too, and therefore then they don't have to make any deals with any cable company.